He's a massive sack of is what he is. He's the biggest piece of all time, and I couldn't have said it better.
He's a maggot. He's a lizard.
He's one of the slimiest, scummiest mother that you will ever come across.
Top 7 most savage Dana White moments in the UFC. Every once in a while, Dana White is forced to turn pink because of some fighters who are always on his neck, and other times, it could be the refs and judges. Despite not being a fighter, Dana engages in a lot of savage moments. So, here are 7 best moments of the UFC president going completely beast mode. Number 7, angry at Paulo Costa. After losing a blockbuster event against Israel Adesanya via knockout, Paulo Costa went on a rant against the UFC and Dana White for not paying him enough money for his next fight. Paulo Costa complained about YouTubers receiving more money for celebrity bouts than UFC fighters get for professional MMA contests, and was unwilling to sign a new contract unless he gets a better deal. Well, Dana was mute about the situation until when Borrachinha was scheduled to fight Jared Cannonier, but withdrew regarding complaints about his pay. An angry Dana White blasted the Brazilian for his antics.
Guess what? You should have started a YouTube channel when you were 13 years old and built your name up and everything else, and you could have had the fight on Saturday night. But you didn't. You're not a YouTuber. You're a fighter, and this is what you do for a living. Or you don't. It's up to you.
But still, Dana was not as savage as when he completely went off on Bob Arum. Number 6, Bob Arum. This bitter sentiment between the two of them has been active for a few years. In 2017, after the commercial success of the Floyd Mayweather vs. Conor McGregor boxing match, Dana was looking to get the UFC involved in the boxing world, but the boxing community did not welcome this plan. Bob Arum was particularly scathing, saying the UFC was getting involved because the business was failing. Unsurprisingly, White took exception to Bob Arum's comment. He said, "Fuck that guy. This guy is such a jerk-off. Literally the biggest piece of shit in all of sports. Bob Arum, ladies and gentlemen." White's response was characteristically fiery, and a great feud was born. It came ahead in 2020 when White blasted Arum after the boxing promoter made some harsh comments against his own boxer, Terence Crawford. Arum complained that Crawford's fights were not making him money. Arum said, "I could build a house in Beverly Hills with the money I lost on him in 3 fights. These comments caught the attention and full rage of Dana White. In a press conference, White went on the promoter, saying, "Shut the fuck up, you fucking scumbag. Pay your fucking fighters what you owe them. Bob Arum is a piece of fucking shit." Well, Arum is not the only boxing promoter White has an issue with. Number 5, Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya and Dana White are unlikely to ever see eye to eye. Their beef started when Conor McGregor made his move into boxing. De La Hoya became incensed at the sheer audacity of the Irishman and the UFC, prompting him to write a lengthy Facebook post about the possible recriminations of the event. This in turn upset White, who wrote on Twitter, "WTF, is this guy snorting coke or drinking booze again? Hashtag Oscar De La Arum." That was a while ago, but it seems that the feud between Oscar De La Hoya and Dana White isn't cooling down anytime soon. Again, when De La Hoya, who is a former 6-time world champion, announced his comeback, the UFC president remarked cocaine isn't cheap and sarcastically gave De La Hoya his blessing. This is in response to Oscar's substance abuse. The 47-year-old has a history of drugs and previously sought help from rehab centers on multiple occasions. Well, De La Hoya recently got his lick back. On New Year's Eve in Cabo, Mexico, White was seen on a video with his wife Anna in a nightclub during which the MMA promoter's wife slapped him, and in return, White landed several slaps of his own. Well, Oscar couldn't wait to tweet about it. "My good friend at Dana White is so greedy, he decided to steal fighter pay from his new league on TBS Power Slap by getting Fighter of the Night against his wife. Those Boston aerobic instructors are real tough guys." But not just promoters. Dana White gets pissed off at journalists too. Number 4, Ariel Helwani. In 2016, White banned Ariel Helwani from covering UFC events. Often known as one of the premier MMA journalists, Helwani leaked the announcement of Brock Lesnar's return mere hours before the UFC. White then went out of his way to rant about Errol Helwani and his alleged unfair practices. Since then, Helwani and White have been involved in a back-and-forth online battle. Recently, UFC lightweight Paddy Pimblett sat with White in an interview during which he expressed his dislike for Helwani even better.
He's a massive sack of is what he is. He's the biggest piece of all time, and I couldn't have said it better.
He's a maggot. He's a lizard.
He's one of the slimiest, scummiest mother that you will ever come across.
Their rivalry has often made headlines, sometimes even shadowing UFC events. Helwani was also barred from covering the Floyd Mayweather vs. Conor McGregor boxing fight at Dana White's request. Number 3. Steve Mazzagatti. White has also never been shy when talking about the mistakes made by certain referees. The biggest axe that White has to grind on the subject comes by the way of referee Steve Mazzagatti, who has been repeatedly slammed for bad decision-making whenever he's involved in a fight. The referee is especially notorious for stoppages deemed to be too late. In the WSOF 3 welterweight bout between John Fitch and Joshua Berkman, Steve Mazzagatti only realized that Fitch had been choked out cold once Berkman released the choke on his opponent and stood up in celebration. In the aftermath of Steve Mazzagatti's refereeing during the WSOF 3 fight, Dana White blasted the referee, saying that he was dangerous. Does anybody here disagree that Steve Mazzagatti is a fucking toolbox? I mean, literally did nothing. Fitch was out cold. The Nevada State Athletic Commission is going to keep this guy around till he fucking hurts somebody. That guy is dangerous, let me tell you. If I was a fighter and I showed up and I see Steve Mazzagatti, I would be like, oh fucking hell no. I'm either going to get hurt or this guy's going to do something stupid and screw up my fight. Number 2, Dana White calls Mario Yamasaki disgusting. But Mario Yamasaki is probably one of the referees who has irked Dana White more than anyone, even more than Steve Mazzagatti. The UFC boss slammed Yamasaki for his ineffective refereeing during the Valentina Shevchenko vs. Priscilla Cachoeira fight in 2018. Shevchenko was a massive favorite going into the bout. She dominated Cachoeira with ease before submitting her in round 2. While Yamasaki's delay stopping the bout was enough to annoy Dana White, the former justifying his actions made things worse. The referee later said that he'd refrained from stopping the fight only to allow Priscilla to be a warrior. When Dana White learned about this, he took to Instagram to air out his opinions on the referee. Number 1, Tito Ortiz. But this time around, Dana was willing to step into the ring to settle his beef once and for all. It's no secret that former UFC light heavyweight champion Tito Ortiz and the UFC president Dana White had a bit of a rocky relationship throughout the years. At one point, White was Ortiz's manager. The UFC president and former management client Ortiz were once best of friends, but their relationship soured to a point where the pair could hardly work together. And at the height of their bitter feud, White went as far as agreeing to a boxing fight with the former light heavyweight champion. Ortiz had asked in an outlandish contract negotiation that one stipulation be a boxing match with White, and the promotion's boss was confident enough in his ability that he would have the skills to beat Ortiz that he was willing to accept the challenge and fight him in the ring. He started sparring seriously, losing weight, and even forced the commission in Nevada to sanction him so the bout would be legitimate. White took the challenge seriously, but on the day of the weigh-ins, Ortiz failed to show up. Dana believes that if he had fought Tito, he would have won. Similarly, if you subscribe to our channel, you won't miss our next video. Click the subscribe button and don't forget to like and comment.